Hello, my dear friends. This is Maxine Taylor with my forecast, my March 2022 forecast for the United States. Of course, let me give you a little background here. Today is the 27th of February. Putin has fired on Ukraine, killing innocent people, children, mothers. It's incredibly upsetting to me. And it's not surprising. Many of you, of course, were predicting the attack, because with all the arms and the soldiers and the armaments gathered outside of the Ukraine, of course, that's what he was planning to do. And our president already said Putin will attack. And of course he did. And there's never anything good that comes of something like that. And my heart goes out to all of the Ukrainians who are hiding in place in shelters. It is egregious. And as an empath, I feel it. If you are an empath, I'm speaking about you too. You know what I mean. We feel what is going on. So I have the United States forecast, and I'm going to give it to you planet by planet. Oh, before I give you the March forecast, if you have not seen the webinar that I did, and I forget what I called it. I think it was something like forecast for the United States from 2022 and beyond. I went through 2039 because I saw something looming that really upset me. And those of you, if I've done your chart, you know that I'm very positive, and I look at what is right and true and good, because if you focus on that, that's what you can create. And I realized that by 2039, things could go one way or the other. And the one way gave me great hope. And I shared it with everybody who is present on the webinar. If you go to raisingthevibe.org, raisingthevibe.org, the webinar is there. So I hope you'll watch it. And if you have questions, of course, you know how to get in touch with me. Okay. Now, I'm just going to go through it so you can see what all's going on and come to your own conclusions on some of this. Once again, let me remind those of you who study astrology that I'm using the 7 Gemini ascendant chart with Uranus at 8 Gemini. And this is the chart that works for me. For those of you who don't study astrology, you have to know that no two astrologers agree on everything or anything sometimes. And so there are different charts for the United States. The one that I've used since, 1967, 68, because it works for me. If a chart works for an astrologer, I always say, well, use that chart then, because that is your chart. That's the one that will give you accurate answers. Okay. And some of you have really enjoyed what I've had to say about the 7 Gemini rising chart with Uranus conjunct the ascendant in 8 degrees of Gemini, and Mars in the first house in Gemini in 20 degrees. Oh, yeah. Yeah, baby. So let me see if there's anything else. Yes. So I'm going to start with the sun, the giver of life, as we know. And it has been in the 10th house. Now, in a mundane chart, the 10th house, well, all of the houses are slightly different than in your own birth chart because they apply to millions of people. It's the same concept, but there are different things involved. For example, the 10th house in your chart is your career and your recognition and your public image, your success in business, etc., and the out front parent. In a mundane chart, such as a country's chart, the 10th house rules the president of the country, the reputation of the president and the country, the party in power, and all of the leaders as a group, and again, our public image. Okay, the sun has been lighting up all that area, everything related to our 10th house, which is quite gorgeous. And I remember saying that President Biden was going to get tough and get stronger as we approached 2022, and he has gotten a lot more vocal. And that's going to continue, but I'm getting ahead of myself. On the 3rd of March, the sun moves into the 11th house. Now, in a natal chart, the 11th house deals with friends, groups, hopes and wishes. In a mundane chart, such as a country chart, it rules Congress and congressmen. Of course, that's a group. It rules legislation. It rules the treasury. It rules city and county councils. Well, of course, this is a national chart, but your local city council would fall under that category. It rules friends, and these would be the friends of the country. And what this says is that we are turning to our friends, to our allies for support. And the sun says, bring it, because I'm going to shine a light on that, which is wonderful. And as you can see, we have a new moon on the 2nd in 12 degrees Pisces, which is right smack dab on the 11th house cusp. And as many of you who study astrology know, the cusp is the strongest point in the house. And so what is triggered, what is activated, just happens to involve Congress, congressmen, legislation, the treasury, and our friends. I would certainly hope that at some point in time, we could, our legislators, senators, congresspeople, could get together, forgetting partisan politics, and create a situation which is best for the country. After all, Putin is alive and well and has nuclear armaments. Come on, Congress, get together. Okay, so that is what starts moving forward on the new moon. Well, it's, what, 2 days away, 3 days away. This looks really good. Until the new moon on the 2nd, we will be in the dark of the moon. And nothing happens on the dark of the moon, as you know. All right. 2 weeks later, we have a full moon, and that's when things come to a head. And the full moon sits on nebulous, nefarious Neptune in the fifth house of fun and games. However, in a mundane chart, the fifth house deals with children. What is best for our children? It can be related to COVID and the COVID vaccinations. It deals with sports, it deals with gamblings, it deals with theaters, it deals with a birth rate too, which is interesting. It also deals with congressional and public hearings. All right. Now, President Biden has named his choice as a Superior Court judge. I certainly hope that this nomination moves through smoothly and easily. We do not need partisan politics to clog up the works. We've got too much on our plate now dealing with Ukraine and Russia. Okay. The fifth house also deals with stadiums because it's sports. And so this could be a time for recreation, and Neptune rules all kinds of drugs and wines and all of that. So it can be recreational drugs, recreational, just partying, just having fun. And it can fulfill a wish for the country relating to children. Once again, if in any way legislation over a woman's body continues as it has, then that's another area that can be involved because it can deal with children, obviously. All right. So the full moon is on the 18th in 27 degrees of Virgo. So these two areas, the 5th and the 11th, are activated by the new moon and the full moon. And the sun, of course, is going from the 10th to the 11th, from leadership to Congress, group activities, and our friends. Our friends. Okay, Mercury, let's just move forward here. There's a lot I can say, but I'm just going to hit the high points, okay? Mercury is what we think about and talk about. It is the planet of communication. It has been in the 10th house. Excuse me. It has been in the 10th house. And so our eyes have been on the president, of course. On the 2nd, the Mercury is sitting on the moon. And I know that President Biden is supposed to be giving a talk of the State of the Union. I believe it's on the 2nd. So that would tie in with Mercury sitting on the moon. On the 18th, it joins the sun in the 11th house of Congress, congressmen, legislation, the Treasury, and friends, our friends, the United States friends. All right, that's the first part I want to share with you. All right. I'm not, for those of you who study astrology, I'm just doing conjunctions because my mantra is conjunctions tell the tale. If I see a T cross or a grand square or a grand trine, of course, I may go into that. But I find that if I just do the conjunctions tell the tale. So yes, I do know that Jupiter is one of the planets. I do know that Neptune is one. I know that. I'm just doing conjunctions. All right. Because some of you write and say, well, what about this planet? And what about that? Well, conjunctions tell the tale. All right. Now, let's talk about Venus, beautiful Venus. Venus is the lesser benefic. Jupiter is the greater benefic. Wherever Venus is, it brings love, it brings happiness, it brings a delightful, positive energy. It blesses whatever it touches. Now, on the 3rd, Venus is going to sit on Pluto. And I emphasize Pluto very strongly, very, very strongly. Pluto, as I've mentioned on other videos, has been right on its original placement in the United States chart. In other words, there is a Pluto return that's going on. We have a solar return every year, right around the time of your birthday. We have a lunar return every month. Well, we have a Venus return, a Mercury. We got returns. So it takes Pluto 248 years to come back to its starting point. And that is what I've been looking at lately, because, and I'll go into it in just a minute, okay? Venus brings a loving note to Pluto because Pluto is all or nothing. It's death and rebirth. It is the phoenix rising on its own ashes. And in the 9th house, now in a natal chart, a human natal chart, the 9th house is rules your principles, your concepts, your beliefs. It rules higher education. It rules your higher mind. It rules long distance communication and travel. And we've been to space. In fact, there is a space station stationed in space. Oh, I can't believe I said that. But, you know, the International Space Station is there. And so we're already dealing with long distance travel. Okay. With Venus on Pluto on the 3rd, there can be blessings involved in long distance communication. Now, with Pluto, and I keep reminding you, because that's gonna be the last thing I talk about today, returning to its natal place. And if you remember 248 years ago, excuse me, we had the Revolutionary War. Hello. And it's just the United States that I'm looking at now. Every country has Pluto in its chart, but in a different sign, in a different house than we do, obviously. So in a mundane chart, the 9th house rules the upper courts. In other words, the Supreme Court. And it would be really great if a response, a bipartisan response would come on down the road and get in line, hold hands, kumbaya, and vote yes on President Biden's nomination for a new justice. So upper courts, foreign travel, higher education, religion. Some of the clergy needs to get a real no-no on their activities with children. You get my drift. Okay. Advertising, science, insurance, the Supreme Court, of course, world trade. Now, Venus on Pluto on the 3rd it only lasts a day, but it can improve our international foreign policy, our foreign trade, which would be great. But Pluto sitting on Pluto says there's a major change in our foreign policy. And I think it's already, well, obviously it's already begun because Pluto is already sitting on its natal place. And you can tell I'm really watching Pluto because I keep referring to it and hadn't even gotten there yet. But it does, the ninth house is world trade and universities. Okay, so Venus is blessing all of that. And on the 14th, it sits on the United States South Node. Now, traditionally in old-timey astrology books, the South Node deals with loss. Oh my goodness, loss. What I have found is that in a personal chart, the South Node is what you have mastered in past lives. And so it's very easy for you to just pick up the pieces and where you left off. And what it does, if you don't include the North Node, which is in the opposite house, you can get drained of energy in a mundane chart, such as the United States chart. On the 14th, Venus is going to be sitting on the South Node, and there can be losses. Fortunately, it's Venus. So there is a blessing involved. So it may not be a loss per se, but there can be positive communication because this is long distance communication. And I understand with a foreign power. And if I remember, I was watching CNN earlier today, and I think they mentioned that Putin is ready for a meeting. So there's that could be a positive thing. Okay. On the 21st, Venus is going to cross the midheaven, that's the very top of the chart, and move into the 10th house and bless our public image, the party in power, which is, of course, the Democratic Party right now, the public image of the country, and the president. So from the 21st to the 25th, Venus sits on the midheaven and the moon representing the president. So this is quite beautiful. I like that very, very much. And so we've got Mercury sitting on the moon. On the 2nd, we've got Venus on the moon, the 25th. And so you can see there's a great emphasis on our public image right now. Okay, Mars. Mars and Venus have been traipsing through the zodiac together these last few weeks, certainly the last few days. They're only a degree apart. And when they travel together, we get Venus, which is love, and Mars, which is power and energy. Mars is passion. Mars is war. Venus is peace. Okay. Mars sits on Pluto, the 1st and 2nd of March. Now, Pluto is gunfire. Pluto is war. Pluto, oh, excuse me, Mars. Mars is war. Mars is gunfire. Mars is fighting. On Pluto, it's explosive. And so we can expect something like that. As I said, today's the 27th. Tomorrow is the last day of February. So we're just talking about Tuesday and Wednesday. And this can be arguing. This can be something from a foreign country. The only one I can think of who's sitting there with guns loaded, locked and loaded, is Putin. Okay, and on the 16th, Mars sits on the south node. And so this is a loss then on some level for our interactions with our foreign neighbors. It can be a problem with the upper courts. Again, President Biden nominated a candidate as a justice. And I'm certainly hoping that there can be less ego, less power grabbing, less lying, less cheating. Let's get together and make it happen. So this can deal with foreign travel, higher education. It can deal, of course, with the Supreme Court, naturally. It can also deal with world trade. Now, Venus on Pluto can deal with world trade in a positive way. Mars, there can be arguing. Between the two of them, they can get it together. They can move it forward, make it happen now, and everybody be happy. You know, please God. All right. On the 25th, Mars sits on the midheaven. And our public image is one of war. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to start a war, but we are taking action. The 10th house is the executive branch of government. It rules the party in power. And with Mars sitting on the moon, the 30th and 31st, we're going to find that by the very, very end of March, Biden is going to be on the warpath on some level. And, you know, our president does tell it like it is. I always get tickled because he's using appropriate verbiage and then he just lets it fly. And I just think I think it's great. I really do. So we've got the presidency, we've got a potential change, new foreign policy, blessings in those two areas. Oh, how lovely. All right. Let me just talk about Pluto again, or still, and give you a sense of what I'm looking at and what I talked about on my webinar, Raising the Vibe. Okay, Pluto is going to be sitting on, transiting Pluto, orbiting Pluto, is going to be sitting on natal Pluto the entire month of March. That means total, out with the old, in with the new. See, Pluto doesn't just change. If Pluto is building a house, it doesn't just change a couple of the rooms. It tears the house down to the foundation and starts all over again. There's no messing around with Pluto. And so here is Pluto returning to its natal place in our birth chart. And Pluto is going to be sitting there, going back and forth, like it has been for the last year. I forget when it began. Hang on just one second. Let me look in the ephemeris. You know, I can't make a move without my ephemeris. And see how long it's been. 2021 was when it really made itself known, and it will complete the cycle and return to it in its return by the end of 2023. But it might, because it's not exact, there might be a little left over in 2024. After that, it moves into Aquarius, and that is when things really start to happen. And that's what I talk about on my webinar. Okay. Very, very important times. So here we've got Pluto in the 9th house of foreign policy. And no matter who wins the next election, Pluto is still going to be sitting on its natal position. So you just got to keep your eyes open. It's all or nothing. Again, foreign travel, the higher courts, religion, advertising, science, lots of advances in science, insurance, the Supreme Court, of course, world trade, our philosophy, and the university system. Now, I want to talk about Saturn on the moon, because Saturn, in old-timey astrology books, refers to it as fear and restriction. That's not exactly true in all cases. Those of you who have studied with me, those of you I am mentoring in astrology, you know how I interpret Saturn. For the rest of you, let me share this with you, see how it feels, right? Saturn to me is not obligation or duty. Saturn is responsibility. And my definition of responsibility is respond to your talents and abilities. Respond to your ability as a leader. That's what Saturn is, the leader. Okay, it's a little different than fear and restriction, because Saturn has already crossed over the United States midheaven, and it's going to, it's been sitting on the moon, which is representative of President Biden. And it's going to be right on the moon, the 1st and 2nd of March. Well, that's Tuesday and Wednesday. And that's when he's giving the State of the Nation, or whatever, I forget what they call it. But that's when he's making his address. It is going to move forward, go retrograde, and come back and be stationary. That means it sits there like a hen sitting on our eggs, just sitting there. September, October, November, and a little bit in December. And so we can expect President Biden to be dealing from a position of authority and power and responsibility at the end of the year. In other words, this thing with Putin ain't over. And there are other countries that can be involved. Other world leaders. I know that former President Trump thinks the world of Putin, thinks he's wonderful. And so that Trump might be involved. I don't know what's going to happen. I no longer look at Trump's chart because he lost the election. He is not president. And I want to focus on the immediate situation, which right now, of course, is Putin. So, my dear friends, that's March. I hope this is interesting and helpful. Those of you who use a different United States chart might get a different twist on this. I have found that this particular chart really works for me. That doesn't mean you have to use it. If yours works for you, you stick with it. Because astrology is almost like a crystal ball. It tells you what's going on. And there are many approaches to the same issue. So I'm not saying my chart is the chart. I'm saying it's the chart that works for me. Okay? So you keep on using yours if it works for you. And join me next month when once again we take a look at the planets and what's going on in the United States chart. And to all of my friends who I have yet to meet in the Ukraine, on behalf of every light worker I know, and walk in, and empath and healer, I send you love, I send you light. You are not alone. We are with you, many, many, many of us. And so, till we meet again, my dear friends, may the stars shine brightly on you and yours, and on your country, wherever you are. Bye for now.